get my props going here. Thank you. We'll see if I can. Good morning and welcome to Sunday service. For those of you who might not know us, my name is Bharati and this is Mari, and it's our joy to be with you today. So, how should we meet our tests? When I first read that this was the topic for today, my mind started getting involved and I started going, how, what does that word, what's that all about? And we'll get to that in a few minutes. Then my mind went to tests. How should we meet our tests? And I'm thinking, well, what exactly is meant by tests? And as many of you know, I have a long history in education, so I'm thinking, well, evaluation, assessment sort of thing. So just to know where we are with a particular skill or body of information or whatever. But in our reading, it was talking about temptations, and when we think about tests, we can think about temptations or trials or challenges, or if we're in that frame of mind, opportunities. But it's so often the case that what we individually consider to be a test in our life is when we run across something that we don't want, or we don't have something that we do want. It has to do with our own desires in one way or another, and they're not being met the way we think they should be. You know, Divine Mother has a wicked sense of humor. When I was somewhere between infancy and toddlerhood, which was a while back, I had a time in my life when I became quite ill, and at first they couldn't figure out what was the problem, and it turned out after a while that I was getting a lot of spider bites, and I was systemically getting poisoned, and so I became kind of near death. And so throughout my life then I've had this kind of, you know, fear, to put it mildly, of spiders. And now gradually through time, I've gotten now to the point where I have, you know, a somewhat workable relationship. So if I see a spider and it's not too big, and it's on the opposite side of the room, and it's not coming toward me, okay. Now, if any of those other things are not the case, then, you know, we have to have a conversation, you know. Right. It's like, whatever, no. Anyway, so just as we were beginning the chant this morning, a little motion caught my eye, and I looked down, and guess what's crawling across my robe? Not a very big one, thank goodness, but I was just going, okay, here's the perfect example. Now, do I want it to be a spider crawling across? No, I want it to be an ant. You know, an ant I could deal with just fine, but a spider? So I'm just, okay, we can do this. But it cracked me up because that's so Divine Mother-like, you know. She will just jerk our chain in whatever way seems appropriate in the moment. And we can pretty much count on that. There are so many circumstances that might come into our lives, or people that might come into our lives, who we find it difficult to accept. There was a Sunday school teacher talking to her class, and they were talking about the 10 Commandments. And they talked about the one, thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother. And the kids seemed to be getting that pretty well. And so she said, well, is there any commandment that has to do with brothers and sisters? And of course, one little cherub raised his hand and said, thou shalt not kill. And I think, you know, we've all had that experience in our lives probably. Maybe not to the point of wanting to kill exactly, but we certainly wanted that situation to change, to go away, to become easier for us. And what we usually want in life, most of us, is for things to be easier. We want to have what we perceive of as the things we need, which are often really the things we want, whether it's, financial security, nice relationships, a pleasant place to work, a job that's fulfilling, a greener lawn, whatever it might be. That's what we think we want in life. But I often think about one of the longtime Ananda people who I had some classes with many years ago, Haridas, and his little motto sort of thing was, an easy life is not a victorious life. And Paula, who was the spiritual director here maybe 20 years ago, used to say that so often it's really important for us to have different kinds of challenges and tests in our life, because otherwise we become like spiritual cream puffs. And so they're important to us in so many ways. I wanted to read you a brief selection from Whispers from Eternity, which is Yogananda's book of prayer demands and poems. In the furnace of trials, the ore of my life is being purified. The fire of experience melts away all my delusions' dross. O divine artisan, burn away all my impurities. Bring out in me the steel of endurance and hone it to a fine edge by deep calmness. Forge in me, from the tempered steel of mental balance, sharp swords of self-control and firm tenacity. With the weapon of inner equilibrium, teach me to fight every enemy of distraction. So I said we'd get back to the how and what I was thinking about with that. The first thing I was thinking about when we say, how should we meet our tests, was how, in what manner we should meet them with what? Fortitude, confidence, the way most of us, or at least I should speak for myself, I don't know, maybe you're better at this than I am, but usually the way I meet my tests is with resistance, with complaining, with whining, and then eventually maybe I come to some kind of a more peaceful place with that, of acceptance and so forth. But when I think, how should we meet our tests, I think back to that cartoon show of my youth, which was Rocky and Bullwinkle, and think of Dudley Do-Right. He was the Mountie, we always get our man, and I think, well, of course, ideally, that's how we meet our tests. We step right up to the plate and ready to swing. And we just do it, and we do it with forthrightness. We do it with acceptance instantaneously. Wouldn't it be nice? And we do it with gratitude. Because, where do the tests come from? What are they for? They're always for our good in some way or another. So if they're a gift, why wouldn't we meet them with gratitude? And many of us, I think, can come to that point eventually. But then again, when I was thinking of how, I was thinking not only in what manner, but how can we meet our tests? And the reading again gave us some good hints. A lot of it is really about attitude. But how do we get the right attitude? Partly, it's a matter of habit. If we cultivate the helpful attitudes throughout our life, then they're handy, they're available to us easily when temptations, challenges, opportunities come along. And one way we can do that is by raising our energy. And there's so many ways. You know, if you pick up a magazine really anymore, they're talking about essentially raising your energy. What are things that you can do? Movement is always a big thing. But for us, you know, we have so many great techniques with energization, exercises, just knowing after a while, once you've learned Kriya, especially, which is the amazing meditation technique, you can just voluntarily, at a moment's notice, actually pull your energy up your spine and right to your spiritual eye. Your frontal lobes get activated, and you have a great opportunity to problem solve issues in your life. So there's many, many ways. And if you want to know more about some of them, right here, there's many classes offered, and you can learn a lot of techniques. But again, even in the general culture these days, here we are in Dwapara Yuga, the age of energy, where people are starting to recognize on a global level the importance of energy and how we can work with it. And then finally, you know, sometimes we're able to raise our energy, change our attitude, embrace the challenges of our life, and sometimes we're really not able to do that. And what then? Well, fortunately, God loves us always, whether we do things the right way the first time, whether we hardly ever do things the right way, whatever that might mean in a given situation. And I wanted to close with another reading from Whispers to just help remind us. The doomsday clouds of inevitably tragic events thundered and poured down sheets of suffering on my life. My courage almost drowned in fear as a million difficulties rose up to destroy me. Only by clinging fast to thee did I survive. Now, when the cannons of uncertainty boom before me and the shells of calumny, persecution, and fierce opposition fall rain-like around me, I am ever protected in the impregnable fortress of thy love. I am so grateful to thee. When the light of good fortune dawns again, as it must always, following every hard night of struggles, it is easy to smile welcomingly at the pleasing sunrise of thy grace. During dark nights of misfortune, however, I find it even sweeter now to offer thee the flowers of my appreciation for being always there, protecting me. I offer all my gratitude at thy feet of deep inner communion. Receive me, my eternal beloved, in sacred silence. And let's take just a moment of silence.